Dear students, I am Dr. Jangres Khan. I welcome you to the lecture of environment and natural resource economics. Today, our topic for discussion is the optimal trade-off between environmental quality and economic goods. The economic process is an assimilative capacity of natural environment. We know that all of us, most of our people are interested in clean and green Pakistan. Every human being in the world is interested in clean and green world. All of us believe in pure air and water, clean water, and we are interested that the natural sceneries may prevail forever. But what the problem is? The problem is that when the economic activities occurs, when the economic activities occur, it results in some waste. Those wastes are damaging the environment and affecting the lives of the human beings. This means that the waste generation and the economic activities they have some relation. Today's topic is to discuss trade-off between these two. So all of us wish to protect the purity of air and water and the natural landscape, no doubt. However, as long as we are engaged in transforming material inputs into goods, we cannot avoid creating residuals. It means, as discussed earlier, that when there are economic activities, there will be production of economic goods. And when the economic goods are produced, there are some byproducts of the production. These byproducts are residuals. And in the language of environment, these residuals are commonly referred to as pollution. Pollution is the unavoidable product of economic activities. Whenever there is economic activity, there will be byproduct, there will be waste, and those wastes are the main source of environmental pollution. An economic activity is expected to generate utility, economic well-being, when it is eventually consumed by household. Means that whenever there is economic activity, it means that certain goods are produced. These goods are produced in the form of different commodities which fulfill the human needs. This means that these commodities, when consumed by the individuals, will have economic well-being for these individuals. At the same time, given that pollution is an undesirable byproduct of the production activities, households' economic well-being will be negatively impacted due to the deterioration in environmental quality. This means that, as discussed earlier, whenever there is production, there will be generation of pollution. And this generation of pollution will affect the environment, which will affect the lives of the human beings. Look at figure number 1. This shows the trade-off between goods and services and environmental quality. We see in this picture that whenever there is economic activity, means when there is production of goods and services, the production of these goods and services have dual effect. First, it has the positive utility because these goods are consumed by the individuals and they get utility from it, positive utility, they use it. This is economic well-being. But they say at the same time, when there is production, there will be some waste generation, which creates the problem of pollution. This pollution negatively affects the environment. And this negative impact on the environment is actually disutility or having negative impact on the economic well-being. So the picture explains that the economic activities affect the human beings in two ways. First, it gives utility, it gives economic well-being. On the secondly, it results in pollution in form of waste, which ruins the environment, which affects the damage the environment, which is disutility to the human beings. The residual produced as a result of economic activity has to go somewhere, air, water, or landscape. As discussed earlier, that when there is production, residual will be produced, and this residual will have to go somewhere. Either it will exhausted in air, it will be thrown in water, or on land. All the three are damage to the environment. The natural environment acts as a repository for waste generated through the economic process. In general, disposal in this way should pose no problem if done in moderation. The natural environment has a decomposer population which, given adequate time, will transform the waste into harmless material or return it as a nutrient to the ecosystem. Means that the environment has, the land has, the water has, the air has some form of the decomposers which absorb these waste, but to a certain level. This self-degrading ability of natural environment is commonly referred to as its assimilative capacity. This means the assimilative capacity is the capacity of the environment to absorb the waste. The quality of a particular environmental medium like air, water and land is determined by its capacity to assimilate waste. The quality of air, the quality of water, or the quality of land, environmental quality depends on how much capacity it has to absorb the waste. So, it is important to note that this is the conclusion from the above discussion in the previous slides. Like anything in nature, the assimilative capacity of the environment is limited. The problem of scarcity. With respect to its capacity to degrade the waste, the natural environment is indeed a scarce resource. This should be kept in mind that the natural environment is scarce and it has limited capacity to absorb the waste. Secondly, the assimilative capacity of natural environment depends on flexibility of the ecosystem and the nature of waste. That is, natural environment will not degrade any or all waste with equal efficiency. This is very important to note that according to Pierce 1978, the land, the environment, the natural environment has capacity to absorb the waste, but not all the waste are absorbed or decomposed with equal efficiency. Some of the pollutants are degradable, and they are easily transformed, decomposed by the environment after some time. But there are some other pollutants which cannot be absorbed easily, like plastics. We see in our surroundings. In Pakistan, we see in our city, Peshawar, we see the shopping bags, these everywhere, the plastic bags, the those covers of different these chips and paper type, etc. Plastic covers. We see these waste, which is very difficult to decompose by the land. So we have everywhere the pollution. The natural environment can deal with degradable pollutants such as sewage, food waste, peppers. These are easy to decompose by the natural environment with relative easily, because it is quite ineffective in dealing with persistent or stock pollutants like the plastics, glass, most chemicals, and radioactive substances. These things are difficult to decompose by the environment. For most of these waste elements, there are no biological organisms currently in existence that can accelerate the degradation process. Means that so far there are no biological organisms which can decompose plastic, which can decompose glass, which can decompose the radioactive substances, radioactive elements. So a very long period of time is required before these wastes can be rendered harmless. The third point to note is that the rate at which the waste is discharged directly affects the ability of environment to grade residuals. Means the pollution reduces the capacity of an environmental medium to withstand further pollution. Let us assume that there exists a linear relationship between the waste and the economic activity, and we further suppose that this relationship is positive. Mathematically, we can write W is a function of x and t, where W shows, or we can also transform it into equation form such as W is equal to beta x, where B is the level of waste generated, X is the level of economic activity. These are positively related. The more the economic activity, the more the waste produced, the more the pollution. The lower the economic activity, the lower is the waste generation, the lower is the pollution. Dear students, a very good example is of this pandemic we are facing today, the corona pandemic. Almost all over the world, the environmental quality of air has improved. All types of pollution has been reduced. In many countries, the environmental economists say that they have very clean air, they have very clean environment, because during the corona period, pandemic, there was lockdown all over the world. The lockdown has closed all the economic activities, so there was no production or very low production, very low waste production, generation, so very less pollution. Now, in most of the countries, there is the corona pandemic is coming under control. It is reducing. So now most of the countries have left down the lockdown. The economic activities again started. So again now we will see pollution all over the world. The T here in this equation represent technological and ecological factors because the waste generation also depends on these two factors. Equation 2 shows simple linear relationship between waste and economic activity holding the T at some predetermined level. In this equation, the T has been assumed constant. This beta represents the slope parameter. It is assumed to be positive. Equation 2 has the intercept term showing that only waste generated from economic activity X considered relevant in this model. Here we don't see any intercept. This means that only the waste generated from this economic activity X is matters. So we can see that the relationship between the economic activity and the waste generation is positive, and it can be shown in the figure 2a. The broken line W naught, this represents the total amount of the waste that environment could assimilate at a given point in time. This waste is positive, still waste W naught is absorbed, strictly showing that this model deals with degradable pollutants. The figure 2a shows X naught is the maximum amount of the economic activity that can be taken without materially affecting the environment. Now look here. This broken line is the assimilative capacity of the environment. 10x naught, this environment has the capacity to control it. Beyond the x naught, the waste generation will be higher than this benchmark W naught. So this means that this is a benchmark level. The effect of this accumulated waste on environmental quality will progressively higher because, as indicated earlier, pollution reduces the capacity of an environment to withstand further pollution. As shown in figure 2b, the ultimate impact of this dynamic ecological effect would be to shift the assimilative capacity of the environment, the broken horizontal line downward. You see here. The point that can be conveyed using this above model is how technological factors may affect the ecological threshold of economic activity. We see here that due to the introduction of the technology, we see that due to technological development, the assimilative capacity of the environment is changing, and we see a downward trend in this waste generation. This figure 2c shows that they show a clockwise rotation of the line depicting relationship between waste and economic activity. And again, if other factors held constant, the overall effect of this type of technological change is to increase the ecological threshold of the economic activity. We see here, due to the technological development, this line shifts rightward, and it has increased the waste generation capacity, the waste absorption decomposing capacity of the environment, and the threshold even the economic activity increase, even the production increases, but the waste generation remains constant. Here we see that earlier the threshold economic production was for this waste generation was x naught. That till the x naught OX naught production, the environment has the capacity to compose the waste. But with the technological development, we see that this line W, the function of xt, they shifted rightward, and we see that it has increased the the level of output from x0 to x1 with the absorption capacity or simulative capacity of the old W0. Now the question arises why markets may fail to allocate environmental resource optimally. We know that environment has a limited capacity to degrade the waste as discussed in the previous slides. That the environment decomposes the waste but up to a certain level. This means that they have this, and that capacity as discussed earlier is the assimilative capacity. That's why the environment is a scarce resource. Every society should manage its resources optimally. The services of natural environment as a repository of waste can be considered by taking full account of all social costs and benefits. Could this be done through the normal operation of the market system? A complete response to this question first and foremost requires a clear-cut understanding of certain complications associated with assignment of ownership right to environmental resources. Let us discuss the common property resources and the economic problem. We know about the common property resources. We discussed earlier the tragedy of commons, a topic earlier too. You know about the tragedy of the commons, that there are certain resources which are common property, and in the absence of the property rights, these are used up to the extreme level, leading to its exhaustion. And we discussed the examples of the parks, that a park, or we say a grazing ground. Another example is the grazing ground. The grazing ground, we know that we discussed in previous lectures, the area for grazing the animals. We know that it is a common property, and the people graze their animals there. And we see that knowing this, Mr. X, Mr. Y, Mr. Z, they bring more and more animals in order to earn more and more money. They graze it on this particular common resource till the time that overuse of this grazing ground lead to the exhaustion of this particular resource. We discussed many examples. We suppose that suppose there is a legislation, government passes a legislation and declares the cars in the city as the common property. Further, the government issues a master key which may be used to start and run any car in the city. So, this means that the car is a common property, public property. So, a person who travels from his home to office, he will leave the car on the roadside. He will never park it at a particular place, because he knows that it is possible that by his off time, the car may have been taken by some other person, because he has the master key. So if you have the master key, so you can start any car from anywhere in the city, any car in the city. So all the cars are yours cars. So a person who left his home for his office through this public car, possibly he may not keep too much gas or petrol in it. Similarly, he will not care for its It's a repair because it's a common resource. So after a period of some time, this car will be of no use, and this will generate the overuse of this will generate the type of the pollution, exhaustion of the resource. Environmental externalities and their economic consequences, you know that the externalities are incidental benefits or costs which are not planned. These also lead to the production of the we see here, yeah. We define externalities as conditions arising when the actions of some individuals have direct, negative or positive effects on the welfare of or utility of other individuals, none of whom have direct control over that activity. Simple example is that people, they travel by they run their vehicles on the road in Peshawar, and for the residents of Peshawar, the environmental pollution, the air pollution in the form of smoke, in the form of this dirty contaminated air, is externality. In other words, externalities are incidental benefits or costs to others for whom they are not specifically intended. Suppose a gardener, devoted gardener. He plans, he invests and he prepares a lawn in front of his house and some kind of plantation. Thereby, it raises the value of the surrounding houses, creating a positive effect on those who pass through it, is positive externality. Similarly, suppose there is a fish hatchery on a river, but before this fish hatchery, on the opposite side of suppose that this river flows from west to east. So from east to west side, from where it flows, there is a mill, and that paper mill discharges some waste into that particular river, which contaminate the water, and the fish hatchery has to bear the cleanup cost for cleaning this water. This is the example of negative externality because it is unplanned cost for the fish hatchery. In the presence of the real externalities, there will be a divergence between private and social evaluation of the costs and benefits. In general, we can expect the following type of the relationship between the social benefits and private benefits. We know that social benefits are equal to private benefits plus external benefits. This is the case of the external positive externality. If the external benefits are greater than zero, this means that these are greater than zero. This means that the social benefits are greater than the private benefits. While in case of the negative externality, we know that social costs are equal to the private cost plus external cost. No, the external costs are greater than zero. So if these are greater than zero, this means that the social costs are greater than the private costs in case of the negative externality. These relationships show in the presence of externality, we expect to observe a clear divergence between social and private benefits and social and private costs. Dear students, under these conditions, resource allocation through a market mechanism, one that is based only on the consideration of private and social benefits, would be inefficient when viewed from the perspective of a society at large. This contributes a clear-cut case of the market failure because market, if left alone, lacks any mechanism by which the account of external costs or benefits. Dear students, these are the references. Mainly, the material in this has been taken from the Hussain 2004 book Principles of Environmental Economics, but you can also read these articles for this lecture. Thank you.